Yes, the best reactor is the Yugang reactor. And why is it the best? One, it has built in safety. You never gas your fish again. It's dead silent. It's more efficient than your other reactors. And by more efficient, I mean it requires less power to drive the system. And you can do it yourself for 25 bucks or so. Depends on the prices in your area. But what is a Yugang reactor? It can simply be this: 2-inch PVC pipe, or smaller or larger, whatever you want it to be. To construct these, you'll take the length times the width of your aquarium and divide that by 17.7. Whatever that value is, you divide that by whatever length that you need, and that will equal the diameter that you need inside the reactor chamber. Now, for my construction, I go to Home Depot or Ace, whatever's more convenient. You can use any size pipe you want. I like 2-inch because by having a larger diameter, you can have a shorter reactor. And what you'll need is 2-inch pipe, if you're using 2-inch, obviously. 2-inch coupler goes over the pipe. You'll need a 2-inch reducing bushing with 1/2 inch or 5/16 inch threaded, and that'll go over that. And then you need some hose barbs. I like the 90-degree angle. Obviously, they're 1/2 inch threaded, and that simply goes into here, like so. If your application you need a straight, use a straight. Some plumbing tape to do over your threads. And I use Gorilla PVC. I don't know. I think it's probably the fancy label, right? But just whatever glue that you choose, just get NSF, and that'll make it potable safe and should be safe for the fish tank. I'm sure the other ones are safe, but you know how people get paranoid about it. So NSF safe. Just glue those connections real well. Use lots of tape. Don't be shy with it. Use it. Screw it all in. Repeat the other side, and the reactor is built. It literally takes 10 minutes of your time, right, to build these. Your other option is you can use clear acrylic piping, but here in the US it can be expensive. So I prefer just the plain PVC. But you do lose that kind of cool factor. I do like cool stuff on my tank, you know, hence the controllers and watching the pH and all of that stuff. But Aqua Rocks Colorado sells a Yugang style reactor in 2 versions, stainless steel and clear acrylic. I like the clear acrylic a lot because what I can do is just open up my sump area and look inside. I can see the water's flowing, the CO2 is flowing, and then I have a gap in the reactor. I know everything's functioning perfectly. And here's his prototype. So fortunately, I got to test this, and I think one of the reasons why he selected me was because I was the first in the world to even construct a Yugang reactor. I needed a solution for a tank, and I didn't want a Surge style sticking out of the tank. So I searched the web and just by happenstance found Yugang, and he had a article on UK Apps describing a reactor called, and I named it, fortunately, unfortunately for him, the Yugang reactor. But he had what he called a CO2 spray bar. And basically, it was just a pipe that he cut in half and had caps on, where CO2 blew into that, and he could adjust that cap that had a hole to control the level, and it sat inside the tank. And just the water movement in the tank is what diffused the CO2. So I reached out to him, I was like, hey man, does that reactor work? And he was like, I've never tried it. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be the one to try it. And it turns out I was the first. And lo and behold, it works, and it works quite well. In fact, in my big tank, when I was going through my different versions, different designs of the reactor, the third version I came up with that's currently on this tank, or on that tank, can hit a 1 to 1.5 pH drop within 20-25 minutes. So I have to be careful. It's a little oversized, and we'll go over why you don't want to build these oversized. Unless you have a controller and you're really confident in your controller. So with his reactor, it's really cool. Obviously, it's clear, as you can see. It has a tube to get the CO2 into the chamber. And the principle of the Yugang reactor is it's all based on surface area. So the CO2 surface area, the length and the width of the chamber determines the pH drop. And I'll go over the formula, but he's worked out a number, 17.7. That determines a 1 to 1.5, and it's probably more on the 1.5 side pH drop. So with the Aqua Rocks Colorado chamber, when you build the PVCs, they're set, right? Once you set the length and such, unless you're using a same size tank, you can't really move it around. So you'd have to rebuild one, smaller or bigger or whatnot. So his come with this adjustable plate, and they have seals and everything, and you just take the plate off. And you can see how his hole is below center diameter, unlike the PVC pipes, right? They're at center diameter. So you can adjust where CO2 begins to purge. Now on the PVC versions, your DIY ones, this is going to be set. So you'll have to measure when you do the formula where right above the opening, the top of the opening. So if you have 2-inch tubing, you're not going to get an exact 2-inch, right? Because this is dead center, and it's not adjustable. So you'd have to cut it shorter if you had a smaller tank, or build a new one, or attach some couplers like I showed to extend it or whatnot. So that's the beauty of his production model. This is adjustable. And why do you want to adjust? And that's what we call overflow mode. And overflow mode is what prevents you from gassing your fish with this style of reactor. Let's say you had a fault anywhere in your CO2 system and you're blowing a lot of CO2 all of a sudden. Well, once you reach the opening, all that CO2 blows out and it doesn't get dissolved, and it's going to protect your fish. So these reactors, and why I consider them the best, are set and forget. So once you get the length right, the diameter right, you never have to think about it again. All you have to do is peek in on it every so often and make sure it's actually in operation. His production models are shorter and have a larger diameter, in fact, an inch larger diameter. So they're actually quite compact, and he sells two sizes. One for, I forget, you'll go on his website and take a look, but he'll tell you what sizes each reactor works for. And I'll show you one of mine that I did buy from him because I wanted that cool, clear plastic. And this one, the prototype was a little too long, so I needed a shorter one. So you get, again, overflow mode. What is it exactly? The CO2 will reach the opening and purge out, so you can no longer dissolve CO2 into the tank beyond that diameter. And that's the beauty of overflow mode. So yeah, all of my tanks have Yugang reactors. I will never use any other type of reactor simply for the overflow mode. And they're set and forget. All I have to worry about realistically is making sure my tanks are full. I can open up my sump, take a look, and verify it's working. And on my DIY ones, I can just look and see if it's purging CO2, and that tells me it's in operation. So what I'll do now is I'll kind of show you some of the different reactors I've built. They're very simple. I only have 2 tanks that I consider display tanks. So all of my other ones, maybe you have a fish room, you want CO2, you don't care what it looks like, because my other 2 tanks, I don't care what it looks like, and you'll see how I just prop them there, and looks doesn't matter to me. Okay, so here's my 40-gallon where I just kind of store plants I don't want to get rid of. And I do have some baby fish that my fish keep having that I just don't want to give to anyone. Here locally, people will buy these fish, or if you post them for free, which I would normally do, and they'll take them as feeder fish. So I'm kind of anti that. But anyways, here you can see I just have an Eheim canister filter, and I just run this right up, and right there I have just a inline diffuser, and that connects to CO2, and that gets it into the system. And got the DIY Yugang, and this one is cut perfect, so I never have to worry about gassing my fish. And this tank is just in my room. It's just here to grow plants, so visually I don't need it to look amazing. And you can see I just rest it right on the back of the wall against the tank, and then it just goes out through the spray bar. Yeah, simple. That's the beauty of these reactors. They're just so cheap to make if you go that route, and they work perfectly. All right, this is another farm out tank, my 75, and it's also now working as a fish storage place, so we'll move fish in and out of here. Since we did change that substrate recently in the 120, I'm not going to take any chances, so I just moved all the fish out. So here again, we just have another smaller version of an Eheim filter. And this one's very DIY, so you'll be able to see all the parts if you don't want to buy an inline diffuser, but of course just the CO2. And what I have is this T threaded valve, or not valve, pipe, and it's threaded 1/2 inch on both sides, and you just get a 1/2 inch push to connect 1/4 inch and screw it in with tape. Now these two parts, I just had this laying around. This is actually not threaded on this side, but if you want to buy this part yourself, get it threaded on all three. So I just had to get some pipe fitting and put it into there to get the threaded for the hose barbs. Just 1/4 inch straight hose barbs, Home Depot sprinkler aisle to a 90 degree, and just runs across sitting on the tank. This is my spare playroom, and just goes right into the tank right here. And there you saw those bubbles, that's overflow mode, so that purges, I don't know, maybe once every 30-40 seconds or so. And that's how I verify the reactor is running, and that's how I prevent the gas from being fished, or the fish from being gassed. The length is perfect on this one. It takes it down to like a 1.2 drop, and it'll purge out once it exceeds that, so you never get more than the drop that the reactor can actually handle. All right, so here's the Yugang Reactor that I built on the 120. This was my 3rd version. To kind of reiterate, I didn't want anything sticking out of the tank, although this one does vertically, and there's a lot of mess on the top of those surges, everything coming in and out of it. So I built this one, and you can see it kind of hid it behind the lights. So it worked out pretty good. Now, like I mentioned, this one is built a little too strong, and it's going to get swapped out for the prototype that I showed you guys. So yeah, you can see kind of right about there is just a inline diffuser without the ceramic piece, and the CO2 line just goes right into there to feed the system. Comes in on the right side and exits right at that white pipe right there. So you can see kind of at viewing level how the reactor is, for the most part hidden behind the lights there. Just see those few pipes. And again, this tank, I know I'm kind of shooting these videos, these segments at different times, but this tank was an absolute disaster, and we just swapped the substrate 2 days ago. Took all the plants out by hand, got as much algae off as possible. So basically a fresh little restart here, and hopefully it'll continue to go well. I might start including this tank in some videos since we do have the new substrate in. And of course I have an affinity for this tank because we took the 2nd place with the Dutch contest at the AGA with this tank. So, I love the tank, so might include it. All right, I hope you enjoyed this episode on Yugang reactors. They really are the best in my opinion. They just work so well. Yeah, and then in the AGA, I was running this version of the reactor, so you can see that it does quite well. All right, guys, thank you. We'll see you next episode.